Quick question. How many English learning apps do you have on your phone right now? 5, 10, maybe more? Now, here's the real kicker. How many of those do you actually use? If you're like many of my students, you probably have a few apps you've forgotten about, a shelf full of untouched textbooks, and a must-watch playlist of English YouTube videos. And you know what? That shows just how committed you are to improving your English. Your dedication is clear. When it comes to making progress, the challenge isn't your motivation. It's finding the right approach. It probably feels like you should be using all these resources, right? After all, more resources mean better results, don't they? Actually, the opposite is true. The more tools you try to juggle, the more overwhelmed you feel. And that overwhelm often leads to frustration, guilt, and a sense of being stuck, despite all your efforts. But here's the good news. The secret to faster progress isn't doing more. It's about doing less and doing it with intention. By narrowing your focus and letting go of the rest, you can accelerate your learning and feel more confident every time you speak English. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Together, we're going to explore two key concepts that will totally change your approach to English learning. The first, the 80-20 rule, a simple yet powerful idea that helps you identify the 20% of the activities delivering 80% of your results. The second concept, JOMO, the joy of missing out, a mindset shift that helps you simplify your routine, let go of guilt, and find emotional freedom in your progress. These two approaches will not only help you make real progress, but also change how you feel about the English learning process. Let's be real for a moment. Everywhere you look, there's another must-have English learning tool, an app that promises fluency in 30 days, a course that guarantees native-like pronunciation. Your social media feed is full of people effortlessly learning 5 languages at once, and your inbox is overflowing with revolutionary learning methods. It's a lot. And while these options might seem exciting, they quickly lead to overwhelm. The more tools you try, the harder it is to stay consistent. And consistency is the real key to progress. So, what exactly is getting in your way? Let's talk about 4 things. First, overwhelming options. Think of your learning routine like a cluttered desk. When it's filled with too many tools, apps, courses, books, you don't really know where to start. Instead of helping, these options leave you stuck in planning mode. The second barrier is scattered attention. Constantly switching between activities like listening to a podcast while scrolling through Instagram. This makes it hard for your brain to fully engage. Learning a language requires focus, and scattered attention slows your progress. The third barrier, time pressure and guilt. Balancing work, family, and life is hard enough. Adding perfect English into the mix can feel impossible. And when you can't do it all, I don't know about you, but for me, guilt sets in, making you feel like you're failing even when you're making progress. And number 4, the biggest challenge, the biggest barrier that I see all the time, the perfectionism trap. To be honest with you, this one's pretty close to my heart because it's something I've struggled with a lot too. You might feel like you need perfect grammar, flawless pronunciation, and a native-like accent before you can even start speaking. But perfectionism often has the opposite effect. It creates hesitation, reduces your practice time, and ultimately slows your progress. Here's the thing. The high standards that have helped you succeed in life, whether it's managing a household, building a career, or pursuing personal goals, might actually be holding you back in your English language learning. Why? Because you're used to getting things right, planning carefully, and executing flawlessly. If you're nodding along right now, saying, yeah, that sounds like me, I want you to know something. These are qualities that make you excellent at achieving your goals. But when it comes to language learning, these same qualities need to be channeled a bit differently. Think for a moment about how children learn to speak. They don't wait until their grammar is perfect. They don't rehearse every sentence in their head. They just speak. And through practice, they get better. This isn't about lowering your standards, it's about adjusting them to fit your goals. Instead of aiming for perfection, aim for progress. Instead of waiting until you feel ready, start from where you are right now. And this is exactly where the 80-20 rule and JOMO work together to save the day. The 80-20 rule helps you focus on the few activities that will deliver the greatest results. JOMO, the joy of missing out, gives you the emotional freedom to let go of unrealistic expectations and feel good about your progress by shifting your focus from doing it all perfectly to doing what truly matters. You can simplify your learning routine, reduce stress, and actually enjoy the process. So let's get into the solution of how to do less so you achieve more. And we'll start with the 80-20 rule. I mentioned it briefly at the start, but if this is a new concept, here's what you need to know. This principle says that 20% of your efforts produce 80% of your results. In language learning, it means identifying the small number of practices that deliver the biggest improvements and focusing your energy there. But here's the challenge. Letting go of the other 80% of your activities can feel uncomfortable, even scary. You might wonder, what if I'm missing out on something better? What if I'm not doing enough? And this is where JOMO, the joy of missing out, makes all the difference. While the 80-20 rule is about efficiency and results, JOMO adds the emotional freedom you need and the joy you need to follow it. It helps you let go of guilt, comparison, and FOMO, the fear of missing out. Instead of feeling bad about skipping certain activities or resources, you feel great about focusing on what truly matters for you. Here's how JOMO elevates your language learning. First, it shifts your mindset so you can feel proud of what you're doing instead of worrying about what you're not. Second, it creates emotional space for deep, focused learning. And third, it makes the process of learning more joyful, sustainable, and meaningful. When you embrace JOMO, simplifying your learning isn't just a practical strategy, it's a powerful mindset. You're not just cutting out the unnecessary activities, you're creating space for deep learning and you're creating room for real progress and confidence. Now, a quick note for my fellow introverts. If you're anything like me, the typical fluency advice to just start conversations and practice with anyone probably makes you want to hide under your covers. Starting conversations with strangers? No, thank you. Here's the good news. JOMO fits perfectly with introvert preferences. Instead of pushing yourself to do things that drain your energy, you can focus on what works for you. Build confidence through thoughtful preparation. Focus on meaningful one-on-one conversations where you thrive. Take time to process and reflect after practice sessions. Choose methods that energize rather than overwhelm you. And create quiet space for deep, focused learning. Being an introvert is not at all a barrier to fluency. In fact, it can be a tremendous advantage. Your natural ability to focus and form meaningful connections will serve you well in language learning, especially when you embrace the joy of missing out. With all of that in mind, with clarity on how the 80-20 rule and JOMO can transform your language learning, let's turn these ideas into action. Here's a step-by-step process to simplify your routine, focus on what works, and embrace JOMO in your daily English practice. Step number 1, do a resource audit. Think about this as cleaning out your closet, but instead of your clothes, you're sorting through your English learning tools. Here's how. First, make a list. Write down everything you currently use to learn English, the apps, courses, textbooks, podcasts, YouTube channels, and more. Then evaluate each tool. Ask yourself, do I enjoy this? Does it fit in my schedule? Is it helping me make real progress? And then pick your core tools. Choose 2 or 3 resources that align with your goals and that you'll use consistently. For example, a structured course for grammar and vocabulary, a speaking tool like a language exchange or online conversation group, a daily activity like listening to a podcast during your commute. If you're ready to take this first step, I want you to download my free resource audit worksheet. This will help you evaluate and simplify your English learning tools. In this quick guide, you'll be able to identify what works and let go of what doesn't, so you can focus on progress without the clutter. Once you've done your resource audit, you can move on to step 2. Focus on your high impact practices. Your core tools should prioritize active, impactful learning. This is what I call your core practice. And of course, your supporting activities are great to reinforce what you've learned. Let's talk a little bit more about the difference between those two, and I'll share some examples as well. Your core practices are active and skill building. This means that you're doing something, and these activities should make up the most of your time and focus. Supporting activities are passive, but still helpful for exposure to new vocabulary, for example, and for reinforcement. Some great examples of core practice activities include speaking with a conversation partner or a coach, like in my Confident Women community, writing emails or presentations and getting feedback, practicing new vocabulary in real conversations. And some useful supporting activities include watching English TV shows with subtitles, listening to podcasts while walking or commuting, and reading articles or books about topics you enjoy. And here's the key. When you do those, I want you to implement JOMO, the joy of missing out. When you focus on your top 20%, those core practices that deliver real results, let go of the rest. You're not missing out. You're making space for meaningful progress. After you've got your core practices identified, it's time for step 3. Build a realistic schedule. The best learning plans are not the busiest. They're the ones that fit into your life right now and allow for consistent progress. Here's how to create a schedule that works well for you. First, start small. Block 15 or 20 minutes for your core activity practices 3 or 4 times a week. Then, layer in your supporting activities. Choose passive learning activities that naturally fit into your routine, like listening to a podcast during your commute or watching an English TV show during lunch. And then protect your practice time. Treat your core practice sessions like important meetings that you cannot miss. No interruptions, no distractions. And then, instead of trying to fit English into every free moment of your day, take a focused, intentional approach instead. Let me give you an example of how to work deeply with one core content resource, like a podcast. Here's an example weekly focus. On day 1, listen to the podcast. This is your first listen, and the goal is just to get the main idea. Then listen again and notice interesting phrases or new words. And then listen a third time. This time, if you can, follow along with the transcript and try to connect what you hear with what you read. This is the activity you do on your first day of practice during the week, or maybe you split that up over 2 days. Next, you focus on vocabulary and phrases. On your second day of practice, pick 3 to 5 useful expressions or idioms from the episode. Practice using them in your own sentences. Take a few minutes to write down examples that apply to your real work and your personal life. Then, a couple days later, on your third day of practice, do a speaking practice. Record yourself and discuss the podcast using new phrases. Or you might record yourself summarizing the main points to build up your fluency. You could practice expressing your opinions about the topic to simulate real world conversations. The reason this approach works is it's a step-by-step approach that reduces overwhelm, keeping your attention on one source. It builds natural connections in your brain and develops real confidence by diving deeply into the material. Lastly, it leads to a stronger understanding and a more natural speaking ability. Now, just a quick reminder, this is an example of how you might approach scheduling time for your English throughout the week. Your schedule doesn't have to look exactly like this. The goal isn't to do everything every day. It's to find what works for you and stick with it consistently. I want you to remember this. One focused activity done well is way more effective than many scattered little efforts. If you only have time for one thing, make it count by giving it your full attention. This focused, simplified approach is exactly what we practice inside my Confident Women community because we know that this is what works. After you have a schedule that works for you in place and you start small, building up over time, you can go on to step 4. Track your progress and celebrate wins. Tracking your growth helps you stay motivated and focused. And here's a way for you to do that. Keep a journal. Write down what you practiced and what felt easier along the way. Also, write down any new words or phrases that you've mastered. You can also celebrate milestones. Maybe you noticed that you used a new word in a meeting, or maybe you understood more of a podcast this week without the transcript. Those are wins worth celebrating. The final step in this process of doing less to achieve more is to prepare for setbacks. Life happens. Busy weeks are inevitable, and you might miss a practice session or two. That's totally okay. Here's how to handle these setbacks. Number 1, accept that it's normal. A missed practice conversation or missed opportunity doesn't mean failure. It just means it's time to reset. It's also important to have a backup plan in place. Maybe shift to a supporting activity like listening to a podcast or reading a quick article if time is tight. And focus on your progress, not perfection. Every small step counts. What matters most is getting back on track. The last thing I'll say about this is do not give in to the myth that making progress is about a perfectly straight line always going up every single day. That is not what progress looks like ever. Progress is this exciting, also crazy journey where you have days that are amazing and you notice all this new vocabulary that you're using. And then you have days where something did not go the way you wanted or planned. Maybe you had a terrible conversation or a bad job interview, or you just felt nervous in a conversation and got stuck. That's going to happen. The progress journey has highs and lows, ebbs and flows, successes and failures, and all of that moves you forward toward your ultimate goals in English confidence and fluency. So do not ever give up if you have a bad day. It is just a normal part of the learning process. With those 5 practical steps in place, there's one more thing I want you to know. Simplifying your learning isn't just about doing less. It's about creating a positive, sustainable relationship with English. By focusing on how you feel during the process, you can stay motivated and confident. So here are 4 success principles to guide you. Number 1, give yourself permission to do less. That 80-20 rule we've talked about shows you what matters most. But JOMO, the joy of missing out, takes it further. It gives you the confidence to let go of the rest without guilt or fear of missing out. By focusing on fewer high impact activities, you'll make faster progress and feel lighter doing it. Second, again, focus on progress, not perfection. I cannot say that enough. Every small step forward counts. Maybe today you used a new phrase in a meeting or understood more of a book that you're reading. Celebrate those wins instead of fixating on what is left to do. The third success principle is to embrace imperfection. This one is so hard for me. Of everything we've talked about, it's that perfectionism trap that I struggle with the most. But mistakes are not failures. They are stepping stones to improvement. The joy of missing out helps you to let go of the pressure to speak perfectly and encourages you to speak confidently instead, knowing that every time you try, it helps you grow. If perfectionism is a struggle for you, the best recommendation I have is to find a person or a group that you feel comfortable speaking with. It is so important to feel safe and secure, to be able to speak with others without fear of judgment. So, whether it's a neighbor or a coworker or finding an online learning community, find your person or your group of people so that you can practice and enjoy the process. The fourth success principle is to celebrate your small wins. From having a short conversation at work to understanding a new idiom, every success is worth celebrating. These small victories build momentum and remind you of how far you've come. And if you've ever learned with me and my team, you know that this is something we value. We celebrate every single win. Now, if you're ready for more support, imagine having a community where you can embrace JOMO, simplify your routine, and celebrate progress with like-minded, motivated learners. That's exactly what we offer inside our Confident Women community, a safe, supportive space to stay consistent and build unstoppable confidence. You now have all the tools you need to simplify your learning, to do less so that you achieve more, and embrace progress through the joy of missing out. With that in mind, it's time to take action. And I want you to do a few things. First, choose one learning method to focus on this week. Maybe it's practicing with a language partner or diving into a grammar course that you enjoy. Then I also want you to let go of one resource that isn't helping you. Uninstall an app or put away that textbook. It's okay to simplify. Then schedule one focused practice session. Even 15 minutes of intentional practice can make a huge difference. And don't forget, if you need help getting this process started, download my free resource audit worksheet to help you evaluate your English tools and create a streamlined plan that works for you. So let me ask you this. What is going to be your first step? What is the one thing you're going to focus on this week? Share with me in the comments below so I can celebrate that first step with you. If you enjoyed this lesson today and found it helpful, I would love to know. And you can tell me in a very simple way. Give this lesson a thumbs up here on YouTube. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe so you never miss one of my Confident English lessons. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.